Hello, this is my first YouTube video, so this is going to be a very interesting journey for us both, but I wanted to do a OBS tutorial specifically for teachers who maybe haven't dabbled around with tech before, or maybe they're kind of fairly tech savvy but haven't really thought about how they could use it in the online learning kind of environment. And I wanted to just kind of run you through what OBS is, how you can use it, what you can get from it as an educator, lecturer, speaker, whichever. So I am going to bookmark the different sections of this video because I completely understand that teachers do not have a lot of time, and I am not here to try and waste any of that precious time with you. So I'm going to bookmark it. You can skip ahead to the feature that you're unsure about, or you can watch the whole thing and get a bit more of a sense of what this piece of software is about. I won't take it personally. Take from the video what you need. OBS is a piece of software which allows you to basically combine multiple inputs and outputs from your computer in order to stream video content, screen record, and more. OBS stands for Open Broadcast Software. This is a piece of software which is open source, which means that it is free now and should be free forever because it's made by the community for the community so that we can all benefit from it. And it's used by almost every streamer which is producing content at the moment. It's very well known. There's plenty of tutorials out there, but I just wanted to kind of come from my teaching experience. OBS allows you to use its video feed as your webcam now, so you can use this as your camera feed in video conferencing software. You can use it in Google Meet, Skype, Microsoft Teams. You can actually use it anywhere that your camera is an input. It's really easy to set up once you get it. I've had really good feedback from my students this week on me using it in class. And it's because of that reason that I wanted to produce this video and hopefully share some of that knowledge with my colleagues, both in the teaching and the kind of online learning universe. Okay, the irony of me running you guys through an OBS tutorial is that I have a rather unprofessional vortex of video feeds in front of me because I am screen recording in OBS to create this video, and that involves me screen recording the screen recording, which is obviously then just creating an infinity spiral. First of all, I'm going to run you through the UI, so the user interface for OBS. There's some key differences to other programs with OBS, is how it sets up its video recording systems. So the first thing you should do is once you've downloaded OBS, you need to go into settings and set up how the video files, screen recordings, or whatever are going to be saved. Because if you don't do this now, you will forget, you'll create an amazing video and then it will either be in the wrong file type or you won't be able to find it on your computer, and we don't want either of those things. So what we're going to do is just going to go to File, and then we're going to go to Settings. And this will bring up this little window here. Obviously there's plenty of different settings here and you can choose all sorts of things to change, but the key thing that we're going to go for here is going to be the output settings, which you can see here for streaming. That'll be something slightly different, but recording, we want to set up the recording path so that we know where those are. Now mine go to videos, but you can change this. If you go to browse, you can set up your own. I can't change where the videos are recording at the moment because I'm currently recording, but if you guys are doing this at home, the browse option will be available to you. So to talk you through the UI, the central section here where we've got this vortex of video feeds is what I refer to as the canvas. It's where all of your information is going to be shown, and it's where you can move around different pieces of like images, video feeds, screen capture, all of those things in one place. So at the bottom here, we've got scenes, which is effectively a collection of different options. Think of it like different presenter modes that you get in PowerPoint. So if you wanted to have your speaker notes at a particular point on your screen versus just the slides, you would have different presentation modes, and that's effectively what scenes are. So I've got these set up in a way that they show different things. So I've got a hold screen, which I have at the start of my lessons. I've got square camera and then like a Chrome preview, so depending on what I'm doing. I've got one which is set up as just my presentation slides, so that shows just the slide deck. I want the students to be able to see it a bit clearer, or if I don't want my camera on for whatever reason. And each of these are kind of, I've named them this way so that I can tell what they are, and I actively change between these during my delivery in lessons. And so scenes are the collections of sources or inputs. And on the right hand side here, sources is currently set up to show Yeti mic, which is what the microphone I'm using to record this, and a display capture, which is my current display showing OBS. On the right hand side of that is the audio mixer. As soon as you set up an audio input, which is the microphone I've got here, it will show you that it's capturing audio. To the right of that is your scenes transitions, which is set to fade as default. It's probably one of the nicer ones, but what that effectively means is as you're changing between your different setups, so if you wanted to go to a camera only setup versus your screen capture setup, like I'm going to do now, hello, it's fade to black as it happens. So you've got that nice transition, it's not too much of a cut. You do actually have the option to add in other transitions, so you could have swipe, slide, there's quite a few different ones. Fade for me is just, it seems the most professional and it's the simplest. And you can also play around with the duration of them as well. So if you want them to be a slightly longer or shorter, fade to black, if you're using fade, that's how you can edit it. To the right of that is actually the recording controls. So this shows you whether you're going to be streaming, recording, because I'm currently recording, start virtual camera, which I'll come back to, studio mode, settings, and exit. Start virtual camera is what you would click if you are wanting to use OBS as your webcam input in something like Google Meet. You can do it before or after, but I find it easier to open up OBS and have that open and start the virtual camera before I go into a Google Meet call or a Zoom call, just because it means that the setup's already there. You can change it halfway through, and I have done that before. It's not too clunky, it's just got a couple of extra steps. So when you're setting up OBS and you're playing around with the different features, you might want to set up something like this. So you've got a webcam mixed with slides or Chrome or whatever you have open that you want to be using here. Something that's really important to remember when you're setting up a source for this is you use window capture, not display capture. The reason for that is because if you have window capture, it's only going to capture that window. It will allow you to pick from anything that's currently open. So if you've got something like Maya for 3D modeling or Photoshop open, it'll allow you to select that as a window input. But the reason for that is it's not going to accidentally display your internal communications as staff, your inbox, something else you have open that you don't want the students to see. That won't be there. It also isn't going to have the clunkiness where it shows your desktop background and stuff when you're kind of going between things. The thing you want to do is set it up so that you've got your window capture. So I'm going to switch across to my screen recording where I do have a display capture, because the one piece of software you can't do this with is OBS. Now we're going to add a webcam to the scene, which is probably one of the most common items that you're going to have as a source in your setup. So we're going to go to plus and then video capture device, and then you can give it a name. If you have multiple video capture devices that sometimes people have, you might have multiple webcams, you might have a DSLR. You want to add it and give it a name. I'm just going to put webcam because I've only got one. Click OK, and then that will bring up this here. And then this is where you can select anything that you want for your webcam. Once you've added this source and you've set it up, you don't have to add it as a new one every single time. So when I show you guys the image overlays that I use, once you've added it once, you don't have to add it again, so you can just re-add it into the scene. So I'm going to select my webcam and click OK, and that'll bring me up here. Hello. So I have some filters on this webcam, nothing like blemish filter or whatever, but I do have some color correction on it just to really make it pop, because it just looks better when it's on the stream for the students. So what I do is I go right click on the webcam source, go to filters, and then this allows me to add a number of different things. So I've got a color correction filter on here, which allows me to play around with things like gamma. You can also do things like brightness and contrast, saturation, hue shifts, all of those things that you might like to have. This is also where you can set up a green screen if you have one, so that it will move, like cut out everything from behind you. You can set that up here by using a chroma key, which is one of the most common ones, and you can just pick up on the green or blue or whatever kind of background that you have. Now, I also actually have a LUT, which if you're a media person, you might know what that is. It's basically a colour profile that you can use on video content. So I downloaded this from one of the OBS forums. It's a film kind of effect. When it's on full, it's quite over the top. Like, I don't want my webcam to always look like I'm in some kind of like 70s retro filter. So I have mine on about sort of like 65-70%. So it's just picking out the colours a little bit and just making it look a little bit nicer for the overall feed. Once you've added this in, it basically becomes a object that you can change the size of. So I can drag this up, drag this down, you can move it around. I've got this crazy tail going on as that's happening. But it just allows you to kind of manipulate this. And this is really handy because it works when you're in a lesson. So if something goes wrong and you're having to try and edit your OBS setup, it's fine because it's still just on the webcam feed. So I've done that before where I kind of zoom in on a part of a web page in OBS rather than trying to get the browser to zoom in by doing like Control+ or whatever. And it works really nicely. You can move things around live, so you don't have to kind of turn your camera off, change it, then go back. You can just do it as is, and it doesn't affect the video feed at all. The other things that I tend to do is window capture, and then that could be Chrome. So if I go to Chrome, or actually it could be Photoshop. If we set up Photoshop. So as it came in, it's massive. But this is effectively how you can set up Photoshop. So you can just have like basically any window capture that you want and then resize it to fit within your canvas. You can add in the different feeds, and then what I do is I have an image overlay over the top of everything, which kind of makes it slightly more professional looking, and you guys can design it however you like. You can add your institution logo on there if you want to. You can add all sorts of things. And I make that in Photoshop, and then I just overlay it. And the way it basically works is where my webcam or like a screen feed or Chrome or whatever, where that is in the file, just make it transparent. So I just delete that part of the image in Photoshop, save it out as a PNG, and then it comes in quite nicely. So I'll show you one of mine for that. So we would add it as an image. And as I said before, I've already got these existing ones on here. So I'm going to do this as Camera Plus Program Setup, which looks like this. I've set it up to be 1920 by 1080, and then what you basically do is you select the layer with your source on it, like you would in Photoshop. So you select the layer and you just move it around. So I can bring this down here, make it slightly larger. Now normally this part, no, that part, this bit here, wouldn't be shown in your video feed because that would be cropped off, but you can see it in mine because I'm doing an overlay on top of an overlay. It's very meta. And let's get Photoshop into the right place as well. So if I bring that down over here. Now we've got these two things set up to one another. Basically this area here and the area here. I'm never going to get that right. They're just PNGs, so this image is a PNG and they're just cutouts. So if you looked at it on its own, it would just look like a cutout. And I think I can show you on here. Yeah, so something like this, where you just cut out the bit that you want to have information streaming through. I wanted to show you the different setups that I have for my teaching. I have created a number of different scenes which have got different varieties of camera setup, different varieties of screen. Sometimes I use digital whiteboards, so I'll have like a whiteboard next to me, then sometimes I'll have the whiteboard next to the slides. And by setting all these different variants up in advance in your scenes section of OBS, it'll allow you to switch between them really easily during a session. And it just allows you to be really slick, where it's kind of like, oh, okay, now what we're going to do is have a look at a whiteboard. And then you just select the other scene in OBS and it will bring it up really nicely. So I have this nice round welcome to Robin fun times learning things. See how well I did that? We've got the square outline because I might want to make sure that my hands are visible for some reason. I use my hands quite a lot when I'm talking, so it just kind of adds to the overall learning fun times experience. I have one which is just my presentation, so if I bring this up, like that. So that has the presentation looking nice. Then I have one which is the screen presentation that's happening, as well as a nice little border on the left. I've got me in a webcam, and then I can have next to it the screen capture there. So I can do that as Chrome or Photoshop there. This one with my presentation. And then what I do is I try to have like a couple of messages. So that direction up there, I've put raise your hand, use your microphone. I use Google Meet in my teaching, so the students can do the raise hand function like you can in Zoom. That's taken an age to come in, but they can do that now. And then my final one that I have is I just have a hold screen. So if the students join the call and I'm not ready yet, I'll just pop this on. Sometimes I'll put on some smooth jazz. But yeah, I usually set it up in this way so that there's always a few different options that I can work with when I'm teaching, and it stops the break in flow of delivery. If I can just switch between it just being slides, just being me, being a holding screen, it just allows it to just work that much more smoothly, and it feels much more natural for the students as well. They just get a better kind of end user experience from the session. So now that I've run through all the different features, the setups, how you have your scenes, how you can use them in your sessions, it's probably best that I actually show you how to set this up as a virtual camera. So as I said at the beginning, the latest version of OBS, which is 26.1.1, does have the virtual camera feature built in. So if you already have OBS on your computer, it's worth doing that update. If you don't have it yet, it will come pre-packaged with the download that you get. The way to do this is, if you just go to the bottom right hand corner, there's an option called Start Virtual Camera. Once you click on that, it will effectively begin kind of streaming whatever you have in your scene to the webcam feed. So the final step is obviously setting up your virtual webcam. Once you've done everything in OBS, all you need to do is click on Start Virtual Camera in the software, so that's down here. Then go into whatever package you're using for your video call. I've got Google Meet set up here because that's what I use the most. It's the same for Zoom, it's all just done through your video settings. So on Meet, you just click on the three dots, go to settings, and then it will give you the video options. Now, OBS Virtual Camera is the one you select, and then it will show up this blue icon for OBS. It's just to show that you've selected it as your virtual camera, but you haven't actually turned it on in the software. Mine's showing this because I can't record the video and also be streaming a webcam at the same time. But what it will show if it is turned on in OBS and you've got it set up correctly in the call is that that call will now use everything you've got on your canvas as opposed to just using your camera feed from the hardware. So that was my hopefully useful, hopefully not too long setup of how you can use OBS as your virtual webcam, use it for teaching, online learning, whatever you need to do. Please let me know if you'd like more videos specifically around how to set up the overlays, how to set up your scenes. I'm happy to do that. I'm also thinking about doing some kind of drop-in sessions for teachers if you're really unsure about stuff, and I can help you out because I really feel for you. This is not an easy way to do things. None of us were necessarily built for teaching in this way. So if I can help you connect with the students just a little bit more whilst we're in these ridiculous times, please let me know. And thanks very much for watching.